5 years ago, while striking down Article 377 that criminalized homosexuality, Justice Indu Malhotra said, history owes an apology to the members of the queer community and their families for the delay in providing redressal to the ignominy and the ostracism that they have suffered through the years. Cut to 2023, the same Supreme Court has asked the queer community to go to the parliament with the heterosexual majority for the basic human right to union. It is perhaps going to be another long, endless and unfair wait for the queer community. Hello and welcome. You're watching We the People. I am Vedant Agarwal. The Supreme Court this week fell short of legalizing same-sex marriages, leaving the decision to the government. While the Chief Justice of India did champion queer unions, nothing changes in their lives, with the CJI saying that only the Parliament can amend the Special Marriages Act and that the government's panel should address practical concerns of the queer community. The ball now is in the government's court. The centre has made it stand clear that the right to marry is not an absolute right and that the concept of same-sex union is at odds with the traditional idea of marriage. Now, the government says status quo or legal stability must be maintained. Now, this has also revealed the complexities of the issue. But with the Supreme Court's verdict, the fight for marriage equality has reached a pit stop. With their right to marry again a distant dream now, on We the People this week, we ask, what is the road ahead for the queer community? I'm being joined by a very vibrant and colourful panel. I'm being joined by Akai Padmashali, who is an Indian transgender activist. And in studio with me, I have Rahul and Shiv, a same-sex couple. They're teachers and students by profession. Duti Chand is also with us on the panel, an ace sprinter, somebody who's been extremely vocal about the same-sex marriage and the right to equality. Also, Karna Nandi, a Supreme Court lawyer, somebody who's been very closely involved with this particular case, is also with us. Nick and Santika, LGBTQI activists, are also with us on the panel. Thanks very much. And in studio, I have a very vibrant audience, all young students, young journalism students as well, very bright. They have a lot of questions, so we'll come to them as well. But going across to you first, Rahul. How do you look at the Supreme Court verdict? Because while the Supreme Court has made some important observations, as I said in my introduction as well, nothing really changes in your lives. How do you look at it and what is the way forward?
First of all, we are not sad or upset. We are very angry how the court interpreted it. Two were against, two were in favor, and one were the key changer were there. And they were failed to perform the tasks which were actually assigned by our honorable or loving Dr. B.R. Ambedkar ji to protect our rights through the court. And we're really very angry on it. They should not do that. First of all, what they done in 2014, it were like overruled by 2018, and what they done in 2008, they overruled in 2014. So this time what they done, I think it may be, not I think, I believe it is wrong, fully wrong. They should not interpret like this. Okay, if it were the 9 judges bench or the 11 judges benches, what will happen at the time? We were not looking at the parliament at all because we know that what they're going to do that with us. We were looking because
so you're still pinning hopes in a sense on the judiciary, because you're saying that you don't have any hopes.
All rights come from only judiciary.
Okay, that's an important point there, and Rahul is here with his partner Shiv, and he was there in the Supreme Court as well when the verdict came out. All of them pretty disappointed after the verdict was announced. I'm also being joined by Duti Chand on the panel, of course, an ace sprinter, somebody who, as I said, has been very vocal. You wrote a very heartwarming or rather heartbreaking piece. You said that your marriage plans had to be postponed because of the verdict, but you're still hopeful. And you also made a very important point, Duti, that it was after Section 377 was actually decriminalized that you were able to come out with your identity, come out, as far as the sexuality is concerned. So that's an important point, because according to you, law is important. It enables you to come to terms with your identity as well.
Basically, Supreme Court ने जो घोषणा किया कि सेम सेक्स मैरिज नहीं हो पाएगा, रूल बनाने का अधिकार नहीं है, वो पार्लियामेंट में रूल बनता है और इसको कार्रवाई सुप्रीम कोर्ट करता है। बेसिकली मैं तो स्टार्टिंग से सबके कहा मैंने कि ये गणतंत्र राष्ट्र है, सबको जीने का अधिकार है। और लाइफ में तो साथ में मिलकर तो रह जाएंगे, कोई दिक्कत नहीं होगा, लेकिन ये जीने के लिए सोसाइटी में बहुत दिक्कत होगा, क्योंकि हर जगह में हमको ऑफिशियल डॉक्यूमेंट की जरूरत है। तो कहीं पे भी जगह को बिना आईडी कार्ड में कहीं पे भी नहीं घुस सकते। आप ऐसे भी अकेले कहीं एयरपोर्ट पे जाए, एयरपोर्ट जाएंगे तो बिना आई कार्ड प्रूफ, आधार कार्ड के प्रूफ आप एयरपोर्ट का अंदर घुसने के लिए भी नहीं देंगे। तो जीने के लिए हमको साथी चाहिए, साथी के साथ साथ हमको जो अपॉर्चुनिटी जो चाहिए हमको सोसाइटी में जीने के लिए, वो बिना हमारे सर्टिफिकेट में कर नहीं सकते। आप बाहर कंट्री जाएंगे तो वीजा अप्लाई करने के लिए उसमें भी मैरिज सर्टिफिकेट की जरूरत पड़ता है। पार्टनर के साथ जाना चाहते तो कोई सरकारी जॉब करने करने में इसमें भी जरूरत पड़ता है। मेडिकल जगह में, LIC में, लाइफ इंश्योरेंस कवरेज में के लिए हर जगह में जरूरत है। और बिना मैरिज सर्टिफिकेट में हम कुछ कर नहीं सकते। साथ में तो रह सकते हैं, लेकिन फ्यूचर में जब देखिए अभी जवान है, हम मिलकर रह जाएंगे, लेकिन फ्यूचर में जब हम चाहेंगे कि परिवार बसाने का, कोई बच्चा अडॉप्ट करने का, वो तो नहीं हो पाएगा ना, तो वही दिक्कत होगा।
ये
तो
आपने
लेकिन
बहुत
मेरा तो
बहुत
पूरा
जरूरी बात यहाँ पर कही कि खाली रिकग्निशन खाली इसलिए इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है क्योंकि आपकी आइडेंटिटी, फॉर यू टू एम्ब्रेस योर आइडेंटिटी, बट ऑल्सो इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रैक्टिकल प्रॉब्लम्स और डे टू डे प्रॉब्लम्स, चाहे वो डॉक्यूमेंटेशन हो या लॉजिस्टिक्स हो, उस सब के लिए आपको लीगल रिकग्निशन बहुत जरूरी है। एंड दैट brings me to Karna Nandi, who has been a lawyer for one of the petitioners there, and he's been very closely involved with this particular case. So Karna Nandi, it's now in the realm of in a sense legislature, but what is particularly heartbreaking also for the queer community is that the fact that the Supreme Court has agreed with the centre to say that it's a complex exercise which would need many laws to be amended, and hence it's best left to the legislature. So this in a sense undermines the urgency and primacy of the right of queer people to marry. How do you look at the SC verdict, and is this the end of road as far as legal redressal to the right to marry for the queer community is concerned?
First and most fundamental thing to remember is that we come to this world with rights.
Yes.
And those rights are either recognized by the state or not recognized by the state. That recognition means is the remedy provided, but that right is not taken away. So that right remains. That right of every queer couple to have their love recognized, to have their love supported in the same way that any other couple's love would be supported. The right not to be conflated with, in some kind of slippery slope pejorative argument with an incestuous couple, for example, that many in the right wing have been, slandering these people in this regard. In terms of the judgment suffers, unfortunately, from a number of internal inconsistencies. For example, the majority judgment authored by Justice Bhatt says that pursuant to a previous judgment in R.C. Cooper, it is the effect of the object and the effect of the legislation that must be looked at, and not merely the object itself, but the effect of the legislation. And that if it is discriminatory, then that's something that it is within the ambit of the courts to deal with.
Right.
And then they fail to deal with it. So there's an abnegation, I think, of the court's responsibility in this regard. The second thing is that even though it was explicitly argued before the court that, for example, when two Parsis came to the court and said that there is no Parsi Marriage Act,
right,
and that the Parsis needed to be married under a law that applied to them, the Privy Council said, first the Supreme Court of Bombay and then the Privy Council, and this was argued before the court. So not to re-litigate the issue, but to point out.
So in a sense, the point that you're making that it is an abdication of responsibility.
Let me finish. But the point is that when two Parsis come, then you deal with it. You say that the common law will look at each separate case, but then when two queer people come, one says that, despite this precedent, that this will be a matter for the legislature. So as I said, that there are a number of internal inconsistencies. We are looking at what can be done.
Right.
The two petitions with queer couples as well as a prominent activist, Mario Di Pena, and we have Kamakshi Raghavan and Melissa. We will look at what is to be done.
Right.
But there is a way in which this judgment takes away not merely from the fundamental rights of queer persons, but it takes away from the fundamental rights of all people.
Absolutely. That's a very important point you made there.
That's something
Also, the
that has to be
fact that, also what you said about your love being recognized and how important that is. Nick and Santika are also with us. Of course, they've been very closely associated with the queer rights movement. So Nick and Santika, talk to us about your story and how important is it for you for your love to be recognized? Just the fact that you can hold the hands of your partner and claim in society that this is my wife or this is my husband. How important is that?
For us, like Dhuti was mentioning earlier, it is also about the real life, practical, on ground things about our relationship. Yes, of course, we still at that, currently we have the right to live together, all of that, yes. But without the legal recognition of marriage or the bouquet of rights that comes along with it, we are deprived of a majority of rights. For example, owning property together. Right? Owning property together, owning a house together. We live in a house together. We have built a home. We've been together for 4 years. We have built our own home together. Yet we do not have the right to own that home together as a couple. I cannot even put that at my address without, by default as a wife would do if I was married to a man. These things that come so naturally by the law, is given so naturally by the law to heterosexual couples, is denied to queer couples. And that brings me to a larger narrative that it is not just about our lives. It is not just about our everyday lives and the issues that we face. Yes, we face issues with regard to adoption. We are facing the issue of inheritance. We are facing the issue of medical intervention. But mostly what we are facing is inequality.
Absolutely.
Because
and inequality is really the core of this entire debate. And of course, as you said, this one right to union actually opens up a plethora of other rights. That really is a key point of what you're making. Nick, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, let's say, God forbid, something happens to me tomorrow. My family stays in Mumbai. We stay together in Bangalore. Shantika can't even come and, take medical decisions on my family's behalf because she is not family. She would be considered just as a friend. And that's the sad part. I mean, there are so many implications of this that we will have to face day to day that people don't realize. And that's the sad part.
These are the on-ground realities. Just because we are a lesbian couple does not mean that we don't want to have a child. We don't want to raise a child. And we very much do, but those rights are denied to us. We can't co-parent.
Absolutely.
Maybe we can individually adopt, but we can't co-parent. And that is unfair to us. That is unfair to the future child. And all children require a loving parents. The gender or the sexuality of parents don't matter to children.
Right, and I'll come to the issue of adoption because that is something that the Supreme Court also addressed. But the sense I'm getting is that the CJI's observations were not enough because nothing really changes as far as these day-to-day impediments are concerned. I'd also like to open it up to the audience, but let me just quickly go across to Akai Padmashali, who's also a trans rights activist. Trans marriages that in a sense mirror heterosexual marriages were of course upheld. But do you think there's a lack of understanding when it comes to homosexuality, which is what is, in a sense, making the judiciary a bit resistant? Because while they did not read down the Special Marriages Act and they upheld the trans marriages, which, as I said, mirror the idea of a heterosexual marriage, they did not really uphold the idea of a homosexual union. What is the way forward as far as you're concerned? Do you still have hope as far as the judiciary is concerned? Okay, I think you're on mute. Would you unmute yourself, please?
First of all, I want to welcome the Supreme Court's decision. I want to respect the decision. I want to keep the differences of the decision. I'm so disappointed with the decision. In the largest democracy, when the system of justice is supposed to speak for the peoples of this country, has been gone back to before independence mode. Why I said this? My recent letter to the Prime Minister of India, I think we as a working class, non-English speaking, gender and sexual minorities and intersex people, we wrote the Prime Minister of India to address the Honorable Supreme Court verdict and what is next. When the Supreme Court of India has referred this whole issue to the system of legislature, I think I keep questioning back to the system of legislature. Where are my people in the parliament? Not even one, not even two, not even five. Just forget these numbers. When you people are wanting to discuss the politics of sex, gender, and sexuality, and the feelings that we come through, or the choice we want to make through, or the orientation or the attraction that we prefer to, I can be forced to be a lesbian woman. I can be forced to be a heterosexual woman, or whatever it is. I think that should come from your perspective, understanding what is self, what is gender, what is sex, and what is sexuality. I think the
Absolutely.
judgment, which was specifically talking about the rights of transgender women getting married to a cis man, and a female to male transgender man married to a cis woman, I think what happens to many other cultural traditional identities that includes the Jogapa, the Marladi, the Shivashakti, the Jogta, the Akwa, the Nirvan, the Satla, the Pantisatla, the pansexual, the demisexual, the asexual. Oh my lord, there are so many identities comes under one umbrella.
Yes.
I think as a
Absolutely.
movement, I think as a movement, we have done a fault. What is the fault? Always going to the judiciary,
Okay.
always going to the judiciary, knocking the doors of judiciary and asking them for justice. Going back to 2009, the Honorable Delhi High Court verdict, to 2013, the Honorable Supreme Court verdict, which overturned the Delhi High Court, the 2014 NALSA judgment, the 2018 Supreme Court Constitutional Bench verdict, where you're referring Justice Malhotra. I think now this 2023 has again overturned the entire consequences that we as community are being constantly structurally discriminated on the grounds of our gender and sexualities are concerned, are the so-called the relationships are concerned. I
Absolutely.
am
So
married
it's
to
in a
a
sense a
cis man.
setback to the entire queer rights movement, is what you're saying. And as you said, there has to be more sensitivity to diversity within the queer community as well. And let me now open it up to the audience here. A lot of you had a lot of questions. You wanted to begin? Yeah, go ahead.
In the Article 21, it says that there is a right to adopt and there is a right to privacy. Then why they have to prove that marriage is their fundamental right? In the Article 21, it states that they have the right. Then why they have to prove that marriage is their fundamental rights? My question. Thank you.
Okay, Karna Nandi, would you like to take that?
Yeah, that's actually quite a good question because there is a way in which whether marriage is a fundamental right or not misses the point. The accoutrements of marriage, which is things like the respect for marrying the person of my choice, and the Article 19 that it is grounded in, the right to family, the right to privacy, the right to the Article 14 analysis of the Kara guidelines, and the fact that there is no rational nexus between the difference between heterosexual and homosexual couples and the object of the Kara guidelines and the acts, the JJ Act, etc., is precisely, I think, the question that bolsters queer couples' right to marry, to adopt, and to have family. So yes, I agree with you. I think your question is a good one.
Anyone else who wishes to? Because we're also, looking at it in the larger perspective, because queer rights are human rights. That is, the principle on which the entire movement is built. But go ahead, yeah.
So my question is, we were talking about child adoption. In the Western culture, what is seen is they go for either a sperm donor or a surrogate mother. So what is the situation about that in India and how legal it is in India? Like, can we just go for that and the queer couple could say that this is our child, because obviously it is biologically their child. So what is the situation about that?
Okay, and taking a cue from that question, let's also look at the larger idea of adoption, because that is something that the Supreme Court has also talked about. The CJ in his observations has also said that adoption is perhaps something that a lot of queer couples are, it's something that's aspirational for them. It's something that's extremely personal for them. In fact, Rahul, you were sharing this with me as well earlier, that it's the court which has made you helpless when it comes to adoption, and that is something that you want as a right.
Yeah. Actually, they just showed their sympathy there. I already told you about it. We don't need a sympathy, because sympathy is for those people who are helpless. We are not helpless. Our parents are accepting us, our siblings are accepting us, everybody who where I'm living are accepting us. They see us as they see any heterosexual couple. Okay, like my brother always used to say that you can take my child and you can raise it. His brother used to say that you can take our child, you can raise it. We have more options. We want to, because we are queer. What is the meaning of queer? We are made up of a love, and we just want to share this love with our children. We raise them, and here, if you see only, what is it? There is a one receiver and giver. Only the loves which are giving. They can see the children.
So adoption, in a sense, is an extension
Yeah.
of the right to union. Nick and Sayantika come in on this point as well, because the Supreme Court also, said that perhaps it would raise questions on the stability of a child when you have homosexual parents. But must we be asking these questions, because not all heterosexual parents are good parents? What is your take on that?
So it's interesting that we ask these questions when it comes to homosexual couples, but we don't worry about these questions when it comes to heterosexual couples. Heterosexual couples don't need a certificate of stability to prove that they'll be great parents to procreate, right? So it is very interesting that this scrutiny only comes into place when it comes to queer couples. And to answer the question that somebody from the audience just asked, yes, there are multiple ways to have a child that is available to not just homosexual couples, but a lot of heterosexual couples as well, which
Right.
is we have IVF. Yes, such as IVF, such as there is sperm donation, like you mentioned, and of course there is adoption, which is something that gives a couple their child. It doesn't matter whether it's biological or not; it is still their child.
Right.
And
So the child
And perhaps co-parenting is also a right that is a byproduct of the right to union. Duty Chand, let me go across to you, because I also want to understand from you कि एक law से कितना आपको कितना how does it enable you in a sense for you to be accepted by your family? अगर आप legally recognized हैं, क्या आपको लगता है उससे आपको मदद मिलेगी कि आपकी family, आपकी immediate community, आपका neighborhood भी आपको accept करेगा once the law recognizes you?
लॉ आने से हमको समाज में जीने की कोई तकलीफ नहीं होगा। सारे लोग इसको एक्सेप्ट करेंगे, जैसे 377 रूल को लोग एक्सेप्ट कर रहे, दोनों कपल रहने से कोई दिक्कत नहीं हो रहा है, कोई कुछ क्रिटिसाइज नहीं कर रहे, और फैमिली वाले भी कोई मतलब नहीं कर रहे, मतलब सपोर्ट कर रहे हो उस टाइम में। तो ऐसे मैरिज सर्टिफिकेट आएगा तो शादी करने से कोई रुका नहीं सकते, और समाज में जो क्रिटिसाइज कर रहे कपल को लेकर वो भी नहीं होगा, और फैमिली लोग भी सपोर्ट करेंगे, क्योंकि हर सेक्टर में चाहे कोई भी मम्मी डैडी चाहते हैं इसका बच्चा अच्छा से खुशी में रहो। तो कोई कपल के साथ रहेगा, सोचो कि जैसे मेरे साथ मेरा पार्टनर रह रही है, इसका जो मम्मी डैडी फैमिली वो सोचते हैं कि हमेशा मेरी बेटी हमेशा खुश रहे।
Okay.
तो
So,
खुशी कैसे रहेगा?
बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात आपने वहां कही, और एक तरीके से मैरिज इज ऑल्सो perhaps the natural progression of the union of two individuals, and what their identities are perhaps is not is irrelevant after a point, because as I said, marriage is a natural progression for a couple. But Akai Padmashali, let me ask you this: what are your expectations from the government now? Because the ball is in the government's court. As somebody who has worked closely in this sphere, what are your expectations from the government now?
So we are expecting, as per the direction of the Honorable Supreme Court Constitutional Bench, that the government shall constitute a committee under the Cabinet Secretary. In that Cabinet Secretary chairmanship or chairwomanship, I think it should be the expert committee where we are deciding and discussing the national the gender and sexual minorities movement.
Right.
And that is a way forward to all of us. I think I hope the government shall come into an existence of supporting the people's voice and people's rights.
Okay, I'm afraid I'm completely running out of time, but let me end the show by asking you, Nick and Sayantika, before I go, what does that day look like to you when you will be able to marry your partner with your head held high? What is your dream wedding like? Let me end the show on that note.
I think definitely Shantika would love to talk about this because she's been waiting for this day. But even for the country, it's such a progressive step to know that your country is moving forward, being more inclusive, and moreover treating every citizen of the country equally. And I mean that's
I think
enough
we'll
for
be,
the country
I think
and
we'll
for
be
us.
proud wives and proud citizens that day.
I hope that dream does come true, because as I said and as we've reiterated through the course of the debate, queer rights are human rights, and this is something that should concern not just the queer community but the society at large. That's it on this edition of Be the People from all of us here. Goodbye.